So what's up guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be looking at the first year of training that I've gone through. I'll be giving a summary of what I've been doing in that year. So I'll start with compound lifts. So what I would do in the gym is that I would experiment with things and use free weights such as compound lifts, which would be the bench press, the squats, the military shoulder press, mostly huge muscle groups, which would gain you a significant amount of muscle over time. So these were great basic lifts that I would do, which gave me a nice definition for the first year, as I did gain 130 pounds to 155 pounds lean during that year. So usually for meals I didn't eat that much, but I would eat 3 times a day, which would equate to, it was close to 2,000 calories. It wasn't much. It was like 2,000, 2,200 calories. It wasn't too many calories. And it did act as a surplus in a way because my body weight was at 130 pounds. I was relatively lean. I was pretty skinny. I started out small boned. And throughout the year, I just ate 3 times a day, really. But just, foods filled with carbs and filled with protein and with a mix of fiber and fats, which resulted in a great amount of lean muscle gained throughout the year. For most of the year, I would mostly use free weights as well. So when I was using free weights, I was going for shoulder presses, dumbbell curls, hammer curls, usually, or even lateral raises. Lateral raises are fun. You look like you're just flying around in the gym, right? Shoving people over. But with the development of free weights, I experienced tension in other ways, which the compound lifts didn't give me. So I would have mostly a greater range of motion with the free weights instead of a less range of motion with compound lifts. Because compound lifts, you go hard, you can go a little higher weight, but sometimes you couldn't really get a nice stretch. And being a first year beginner, I didn't really understand the stretch or the tension over time. So compound lifts were limited. And so using free weights, I was able to go for that little stretched position. And I didn't really know what a stretched position was in that time. But just by pure anecdotal evidence, I would just know that free weights would give me that extra stretch, which I wanted, and which really helped really cap the muscle. I would feel it. I would feel it just tear. Well, not tear. That would be exaggerated, but I would just feel it like kind of overstretching and just giving that a nice pump that you wanted to see in the gym. I would look in the mirror and I'd be excited. I was like, holy shit, So during that year, for supplementation, I never took any creatine. I never took a pre-workout. Straight up have coffee. So I just have black coffee. I know it's pretty psychopathic to have black coffee, no sugar, no milk, but that's just how I like it, So I took multivitamins. The multivitamins would help me just in case I didn't have every single vitamin I needed throughout the day, as if I was eating food that weren't rich in nutrients. Then the multivitamins would just help out. The multivitamins would just help out with the lack of vitamins I needed. So it was just an insurance policy so that I make sure that I feel at my utmost. And so I took basic multivitamins, and it did help. I did feel a difference because when I was eating 3 times a day, you don't get much of your nutriments. You can get a good substantial amount, but you don't get all the vitamins and minerals which you need to help you with your gym progress. So another thing I didn't do for the summary of that year is I never took notes. So that's a lack. That's you need to take notes. What I've learned over time is that notes is like just recording your progress or just having progress in gym and just noting it down will make that difference. I used to think that it won't, but so far it has. You can see the difference, when you when you track down your stuff, you know exactly what you're doing in the gym, and you counter any imbalances that you have. And if you want to get strong in something, well, you know that you're going to put this amount of weight on that session. You can actually increase it over time. So taking notes is very underrated. You know, as beginners, usually beginners, they never really take notes, and taking notes is really something that's going to help you. So that was my summary for the year, as well as gaining 130 pounds. Oh no, sorry, not gaining 130 pounds. I'd be Sam Sulek at that point. I started at 130 pounds lean, and I gained around 25 pounds. I was 155 pounds fluctuating, you know. So usually when you fluctuate around 1 to 3 pounds in water weight. So I was around 155 pounds lean, and I wasn't relatively fat, or I wasn't skinny fat. I was actually lean during that time. So my abs had more definition, and I wasn't shredded, but I was at a good amount of like at least 13% body fat, which is the 13-14%, you know. It's just like a little, like just on the average, slightly under average, you know. It's not fat, and you know, no extra really adipose tissue, but relatively lean, you know. So that was the summary of the first year of training. Now I'll be explaining the end result. So for the end results of that first year of training, what it gave me is that I started to plateau. So I hit a point where I stopped gaining weight towards the end of the year. So after like that 10-month marker, I was starting to gradually just stop gaining weight, and also the muscle tissue that I was putting on was starting to gradually decrease as well. So because I was doing the same movements, the weight was increasing over time, which was good. It was a good sign of muscle gain. Eventually, you hit a point where you need to start eating a little more just to gain the extra weight that you want. So that extra weight and muscle is going to really benefit you, and that's one thing that I had at the end results of that year, is that I began to look for answers. So the more you go through something, the more you start to seek and find things, and then eventually you'll find things and just enrich yourself. And that's what you want. You want to enrich yourself on answers that you have questions to. And so I began to look on the internet for the wildest things. I would just look at like how to gain muscle as fast as possible. I was looking at all these YouTubers. I was looking at multiple videos. I was looking at research papers. I was looking at so many things just to really gain as much muscle as possible. Through that, I started to love the progress. And so that's the thing you want. You want to progress, and in your progress, you start to fall in love with the passion of it. You know, you start to get somewhere. You're doing things, you're inputting things, and you're outputting something. You're displaying something. You're getting to somewhere, and that's what you want. You want to get progress. And that's the key thing you want in life, is progress. A very important keyword. Because I started to love the progress, I wanted more, and I was getting more passionate in it. So every new piece of info that was out there on YouTube, or every new influencer, or every new YouTuber that would pop out, I would just look at, and I would distinguish the differences between every single YouTuber, and their thoughts and ideas, and their techniques and their methods, and I would try to distinguish that and apply it in the gym. So at the end result of the first year, towards that 12-month marker, I started to apply things in the gym. I started to be more experimental, and that's what I got from that end result of the year. I started to enrich myself a little more, and that's what happens after first year in anything. You start out as a beginner, you start to touch things, you start to experiment things, and eventually you start to question yourself, and through these questions you can actually get to places. And that's where I am now, after 6 years of training. So it comes with time. Everything comes with time. Patience is a virtue. That's very important too.